I used to work here many years ago. I think I talked about that before. I was like 20. How the fuck old was I? 23, 24? I think I was 23. Or maybe I was 24. I can't remember. I think I was 23. And there was a kid. There was a girl I worked with. She was very young. I think she might have been 18 or 19. And she had like... I know she had a baby daughter. I can't remember how old she was. But I remember it startled me. Because I was like, aren't you yourself a kid? Like, why do you have a kid? I know that's like really naive, privileged thinking. Like, oh, you just haven't been exposed to the real world. I guess I haven't, because a lot of people in my family, when they had kids, they planned to have kids. Even Jeremy. He was married, and then Ashley Claire, she was knocked up. But they got married like right when they found out. So it would coincide, the baby being born would coincide. So they're like, oh, you had premarital sex and the baby was born out of wedlock, you know. My other cousin Derek, that was planned. The second baby was not planned. The first one was. And she's 20 this year. I can't fucking believe it. And then Max, when was he born? 2000. I think he was born in 2007 or 2006. Because when they were all going to court over Derek's crazy bitch ass ex, the ex-girlfriend, that's the baby mama of both his kids, was still pregnant. And the crazy bitch was trying to tell them, because they already decided on a name because they knew the sex of the baby was a boy. They're like, let's call him Max. Maximilian, Max. And this fucking crazy bitch, she was like, and Tara's my daughter, and Max is my son. Well, the mom went and spoke, you know, to everybody. And she's like, that's funny considering the fact that he's still in my belly. You know, she was pissed about having to make a courtroom appearance. But it's a good thing she did, because the fucking asshole judge, the California judge, he was not believing my cousin at all. Because his very clearly deranged fucking ex was like, she was like, and Tara's my daughter, and blah, 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 blah. You know what, we can take a shortcut and walk through the school to get where we need to go. Hopefully we don't get arrested. But she was like, Tara's my daughter. Lie. Max is my son. Well, everybody knew she was full of shit, but now we really knew she was full of shit, because I mean, I think the judge asked, well, is it like, did she donate her egg? Is she an egg donor? Was it in vitro because she can't conceive? And Trish, you know, the original ex, the baby mama, because they broke up amicably, but they broke up, but they were still friends. And she was like, no, it's our baby. It's his and my son. And Tara is mine and his daughter, you know, which we had normally the normal way. And so the case was thrown out. But it was like, I was told from Derek and everyone that the judge pretty much didn't believe him was still kind of like, like, oh, like he believed the woman, but he wouldn't believe him because he's a man, which I thought was really weird. Considering he had a clean record, never got arrested, never went to jail, never went to prison. But I think Max is either 17 or 18 this year. I think he's born in 2007, so he'd be 17 this year. And we'll be done with school next year. I can't fucking believe it. Honestly, it just goes to show how old I am. I'm old. I'm officially old. This wrapped up things look like dead bodies. Like, this looks like the alley from Silent Hill 1. When you come out and there's like a dead body on a gurney. Just, And then those little demon babies with the knives come out. And then he wakes up in the cafe. This is a really great time for me to be talking and joking about that. Especially when this school is supposed to be like haunted as fuck. Oh no. A barricade. However will I get through? However will I get through? It's interesting about the school being haunted. When I first worked there in 2006, I had no idea of Roy High's history. I had none, and I talked about this before. I went in just as like, oh, I heard about the school. I had friends who went there. Nobody ever talked about how it was haunted or whatever. That was news to me. I mean, it's like every school you go to, there's always rumors. Like, and it's usually like a Freddy Krueger type of rumor. Oh, the custodian was a child rapist. And he was locked in the boiler or incinerator or whatever. And he roams the school at night in the early morning. Which I knew that was bullshit about my school, about my high school. Because my high school is still relatively new. When I started going there in 2000, Northridge, it was still new. Because it was built in like 92? 91 or 92. So it's like just barely early 30s. Whereas Sunset Junior High has been around since the 50s or the 60s. So it was quite old. When I went there, see, Sunset, I could believe, and I hated that fucking school. I would wait outside till more people came before I went in because I had bad feelings about that whole building. I think that whole building has bad karma. I think there's been suicides in that school. I think it drives people to being negative and nasty. I could write a book about all the fucking twisted shit I went through and observed and witnessed in that school by the students, by the faculty, by the substitute teachers. Substitute teachers were crazy. People would come into that school to be substitute teachers, and it's like they knew if it didn't work out here, they'll just go teach at a different school. Like, they'd never see him again, so it was fine if they, acted crazy and swore at the kids or made threats or whatever. I'm trying to remember if I heard a rumor about Sunset Junior High having, I think I heard it was either Fremont Elementary or Sunset Junior High, where supposedly a girl committed suicide in the bathroom I know it sounds, oh, that's Harry Potter. This was years before Harry Potter. This was like I was in 1996, about to enter 7th grade. Like I was still in finishing up 6th grade at elementary school, and I had heard that from one of my friend's older brothers who was like in, what grade was he in? I think he was in 9th grade, because I don't think we ever, the only time we went to the same school together was when we were both in elementary school. Because when I was in 6th grade, he was like in 9th grade. So when I was in 5th grade, he'd be in 8th grade, etc., etc. So, and I believed him because it's like, oh my, he's been through that school, he knows how it is. So I remember hearing about Spirit Hall. Anybody who went to Sunset Junior High, oh, Spirit Hall is the 9th graders. I never understood why they called it Spirit Hall. Like, I never got this, like, basically no students or staff or anyone explained to me why we call it Spirit Hall. So for the longest time, I just thought, oh, that's just the name they gave it. Looking back at it now, some 20 odd years later, I'm like, that's a really oddly specific name to call that hangout area for 9th graders. Why not call it Freshman Hall? Why not call it No Man Zone or No Man Land? Because they didn't want anyone that wasn't a 9th grader going in that area, because it's where the 9th graders hung out. And it was like very specific. And it's like, you think Spirit, you think cheerleading, pep rallies, sports. There was no trophy cases there. There's no, anything to indicate. And before they renovated it and put a commons area there, because that's how it's been the past 20 years. So, like, 20 or 30 years before that, it was just literally a hallway. It was literally just a hallway. 20 or 30 some odd years before that. And that's why they call it Spirit Hall. Well, I don't know that's why they call it Spirit Hall. Well, just the hall part, because there's just literally a hallway, a corridor. There's no lockers there in that hall. It's literally your whole purpose is to walk from point A to point B. And that's it. Now, like I said, I've only heard from one person, and I'm trying to remember the kid's name, his brother. Because, see, I didn't even get to go to middle school with the kid because they moved. They moved that summer. So we didn't even get to go to school together to investigate. I was on my own. And the brother said, he was like, yeah, that school's very haunted, but Spirit Hall, I don't remember if he talked about Spirit Hall. I don't think he did, but he said the bathrooms were where the ghosts like to hang out. And I was like, the ghost? And he was like, yeah, a girl killed herself, but she's relegated to the girls' bathroom. Because she's a girl, she killed herself in the girls' bathroom. And I just thought that was so weird. I would think that she'd have access to the whole fucking school. You're dead, you're a ghost, you're anchored there. Like, you have unfinished business. So you're an earthbound spirit. I'd assume you'd have access to the whole building. But he said she's relegated to only the girls' bathrooms, which I thought was weird. So I thought, how the fuck is she going to get... See, I'm trying to make logic back then out of, like, potentially fictitious supernatural shit, where I'm thinking, so does she flush herself down the toilet like Mario, and then she pops out of a toilet and across the building in a different girl's bathroom? I mean, she could just fucking phase through the wall, but then, oh, she's in... I don't know. It didn't make any sense, but most ghost stories that people tell you are very over the top, especially kids. They're like, oh, and this happened. There was another one. I think I was told this way before I went to Sunset, and I forgot about it. But it was from one of the babysitters I had, because I started at Sunset when I was 13. I started school there in 97. And I think I was like 11 or 12. I had this babysitter. He was like 15 or 16. Oh, God. I had the biggest crush on him. Like, by the time I was like 11 or 12, I knew I was not like other guys. And I had the biggest crush on him. And we would stay up and watch movies and eat junk food. And he told me, because he was 16, so he was in high school, 16 or 15. So he was in high school. And he told me about the school I was going to be going to, how potentially haunted it was. And that was uncomfortable. He said, now this is like years ago, like almost 30 years ago, so bear with me. But I remember him saying, I wrote it off as a joke because he kind of tickled me after it. And, because it's like, the claw game, and it was like Freddy Krueger, but it was his hand. And I thought, now if I remember correctly, he said, as a member of staff, it was like a janitor, which now thinking back at it, as a 40-year-old adult, it's so cliche. It's always the janitor that's unstable. No, not the teachers that have to deal with all the fucking kids and the parents. No, it's the custodians that barely ever have to deal with the kids or the parents or anyone. As a janitor, is disgruntled, came into work early, didn't kill himself. He was planning to like blow up the school or something, but he ended up accidentally killing himself somehow, I think. I can't remember. That's when he was like, the claw. And I remember telling that because I just thought that was the coolest fucking bit of lore. Like, oh my God, nobody else knows this. Like, I was like 12 and I was like, oh my God, like, this is some major tea, like an actual high schooler. Because I was still in 6th grade. I was still in elementary school. I was like, oh my God, an actual high schooler spilt the tea. He told me, a deep secret. And I think it was in PE, in gym class, or... No, it wasn't. It was at school, but it was like on a weekend. Because some of us, they stopped letting kids do that. But I remember back in the 90s, you could be a kid and go with other kids and play at the playground and nobody would say anything about it. But when I became a teen, cops would come out of nowhere and be like, you need to get out of here. don't walk through the school. And I remember I wasn't even in the school. I was walking the street that if you turned would take you by some apartments, and then the school is right there. But I had not made my turn yet. I was still walking straight. And he comes out of nowhere abruptly. He's like, don't trespass for the school. And I was just like, oh, I wasn't planning to. I'm just going home. And Sunset cops back then were all fucking assholes. So on a weekend back in like 1996 or early 97, before I went into, one of the older kids that was already in junior high at the time, so he was like 13, 12 or 13, I think he was like either 13 or 14. So he was older than me, but not like, oh my God, you're an adult, go away. He was like a few years younger than my babysitter, which was the last time, that cute guy was the last time I ever had a babysitter. Because my mom was like, oh, you did so well. And you're old enough now, you don't need a sitter. No, I tell a lie, because when I turned 13, I officially no longer, when I became a teen, I no longer needed a babysitter, according to them. Being 12, apparently I did, but being 13 was, oh, well, you're an adult now. I'm like, what? Where was my mitzvah? I'm not Jewish. I'm a man now? Okay, so where's my mitzvah? Where's my fucking envelope with Bubby's money in it? Yeah, so anyway, because I'm rambling, I relay this story because back when we had these old Kitty Kingdom wooden big toy things, there was like this chain link spider web thing, and we would hang out on that, on it or under it, whatever. And this kid, I think his name was Norris or Karis. It was like a weird name, because even Norris is a weird name to have as a first name. And him and his, not brother, but like younger cousin that went there. Not the kid and the older brother who moved. These are completely different. I related to them because I thought, oh my God, I have to tell someone about, about this hot gossip I just learned from my babysitter. And I didn't tell them I had a babysitter because most of these kids, well, they told me by the time they were 10, they're like, well, I stopped needing a babysitter by the time I was 10. So I was like 12. So I'm like, I'm not going to fucking tell them that. So I just told them I heard it from, like, technically he was a neighbor because it was at my mom's friend's house, because he lived nearby her, like down the street on the corner, so he could just like ride his bike over and watch me for the night. And I remember saying that, oh, it's just like, my neighbor guy or whatever I call him, Paperboy. And because I was like, if I told them I was still having a babysitter, they would forget all about this scary story and crucify me. Or like, you still have a fucking babysitter and you're how old? So yeah. Anyway, I told them, I heard it from my neighbor boy, the Paperboy, about the junior high school. And they didn't question it, but the older guy, he goes, oh, that's close to what happened, but it's not exactly. It wasn't a custodian, it was a teacher. And she was like, I mean, he really went in on the word. He's like, oh, her name was Miss something like Miss Franson or Miss Fraser or something, but it's like if you search her up, you won't find her. Like, she was so bad, and after what she did, they deleted all records of her, and I thought, wow, that's... I thought, like, when I learned what unpersoning was, like when you completely cut off, disassociate, ostracize someone from the community, like, that's kind of what happens. The thing is, though, they keep records, because if someone was a complete fuck-up asshole, like my ex-keyboarding teacher, Miss Smith, who would show up late and drunk all the fucking time. I imagine, for example, they would want to keep her on file so that they don't make the mistake of hiring her again, because she would always show up late and drunk and scream at the kids and blame them for her problems. And but at the time, being that I was like 12, young, gullible, impressionable, and this older kid, which we weren't friends, by the way. Me and Norris were not friends. We weren't enemies, but we weren't friends. I wasn't friends with his younger brother, cousin kid, but we had classes and we were like, polite and friendly to each other. They're in that car hooking up. There's nobody in there. But I saw them, because I would go by myself to the park at 12 and hang out at age 12 during the day and pretend I was playing Zelda. I was Link and all this other shit. And I saw them, like, oh my God, I have to tell them. So when I told them, anyway, catching up to speed, the older kid, Norris, was like, oh yeah, that's true. But it wasn't actually a janitor. It was, I think she was like a history teacher or an English teacher. And she went crazy because she had a particularly really bad class, and they would make a habit of messing with her all the time. And they intentionally, like, would fail. Like, he said they would, like, mess with their grades or their homework they turn in on purpose to, like, make her work even longer, which I thought was weird. Like, why would you do that? And basically she went crazy and just started giving everybody F's and started writing crazy stuff on the chalkboard. So I think it was before we had dry erase boards. And to the point where her fingers were bleeding and wrote everything else in blood, and locked herself in the room, and in an attempt to rid herself of the papers, the burden of paperwork, she's like, oh, it never ends, it never ends, it never ends, set them on fire. But she couldn't get out because those locks were very tricky. And because I think she left the key on the outside, so she essentially locked herself in and couldn't open the windows because there were like shelves in the way, so she couldn't get to the window to open it. So she ends up dying from like smoke inhalation. And supposedly what he said was like, oh, now that room is like a teacher's lounge, like a English teacher's lounge on the second floor, or a science room. Because all the science rooms that I remember, and all the rooms on that floor anyway, were bricked. It was the same color walls as the hallway. And the English classrooms I remember having, like Miss Her name was Fulton when I was going there, but I think her last name is different. Her classroom had those really weird, ugly, like carpeted walls, which were weird. But yeah, her walls were carpeted. Anyway, I thought, well, that's interesting, and maybe that could be true, because you could easily hide it by saying, oh, if anybody asks about the burn marks or whatever, the scorch marks, they say, oh, that's from a lab experiment or what have you. Now, okay, both those stories are from the babysitter. I heard from the older kid at the playground. I assume, even back then, I was like, oh, that's a great story. I didn't think it was true. Because I'm pretty sure by the time I got to that school, I forgot all about that shit. I was scared of that being alone in that school because it gave me the creeps. That school is like Roy High. Now I know it's haunted. And I felt negative energy, very extreme negative energy, and cold spots back in 2006 before I even knew the place was haunted. It had been haunted for decades longer before I first set foot in there. That's fucking weird. Yeah, so, and speaking of Roy, when I was walking and I decided, I'm going to take a shortcut through the back of the school, which I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest right now, I kind of regret it, because I felt so uneasy and nervous and panicked. Like, the abandoned farmhouse in Clinton, how I described that feeling of helplessness, anxiety, nervousness. That's how I felt, but increasing anxiety until I crossed under that barricade and left. And I was joking about Silent Hill and the little demon babies with knives, but trying to break the tension, because it felt very tense. And another thing, around the time I said, I don't think I captured on film, because it was like a blink and you miss it thing that I barely noticed, not in the camera, but just like my actual eye looked like a man, the dark silhouette of a man, just kind of like rounding the far corner. Like if you see from here to where that Panda Express, the Krishna Express is, so like I'm here before the first barrier at Roy High where the bathrooms are, and then looking up past the weightlifting room where there's that kind of like a little alley area, I saw what looked like a dark silhouette of a man just kind of dart, like behind that area. And I didn't call attention to it. Really, the only reason I didn't call attention to it is because I didn't really know if I really saw what I thought I saw, because like it could literally be a trick of the light, it could be seeing things, whatever. There's lightning. It could have been a pareidolia based shadow from an ocular hallucination, pareidolia based from the lightning. Like I'm not automatically, it's a ghost, it's a demon, but it moved like I legit thought. Like if you're so certain you're alone, you're out and about, you're walking, you're exploring by yourself, and then you randomly hear or see or bump into someone, that feeling where you're kind of like, especially with someone you don't know. So you don't know if they're nice or mean or friendly or bad. I always get this kind of feeling like, I don't know if girls get it, but guys get it like in our sack, where it's like, oh. And I guess people describe it as like fight or flight. I don't know if this is rain or hail. This could actually be snow. So thank God I'm almost home. Yeah, so I didn't bring attention to that for A, because I didn't know what I was seeing, if it was actually, a ghost or not. Or a shadow person, I guess, because those are supposed to be, they're supposed to be extra dimensional, and they're supposed to be worse than ghosts. B, also, I feel like if I don't bring attention to it, if I don't acknowledge it, if I don't speak it into existence, then it's not real. Just in case it is real and it's evil, it's malevolent, then I'm not empowering it by fearing it, or, you know what I mean? I'm not like giving in to negative energy, which a lot of these beings supposedly feed off of. Of course my area town would be... Look, you can't even see the sky, it's all clouded. I thought it was relegated out there past Roy and Antelope. Nope, it's out here. It sure as shit is out here. But I hope you enjoyed those little stories this evening. And the last one about the supposed ghost shadow person wasn't really a story, it's what I thought I saw. And I'm willing to concede it could have been illusion, an ocular pareidolia from the lightning. So, if you don't know what pareidolia is, it's like seeing faces or things out of like trees, rocks, shadows, whatever. I don't know if it's really necessarily applied to shadows, but that's what I call it, because it's just, I'm trying to make it sound more scientific and reasonable. I feel like if the first thing you jump to, oh, it's a ghost, it's a demon, I feel like your credibility is kind of like questionable if you're not willing to be rational about it and be like, oh, it could be, whatever. Oh my God, it's not supposed to be at 9, it's supposed to be at 8. Okay, so this building here is the seminary building at Roy Junior High. A couple years ago, I want to say it was in 2021 or 2022 it was. I was walking around here at night, and I think I was talking on the phone with my friend Eric, and I was walking like this way, and I seen across the lawn what I thought was someone's cat or dog, but then I looked at it and it was like a pair of legs, and it was like the full shadow outline of a person, and there was a car parked here, and I thought, oh, someone's like, they just left. I mean, it creeped me out because I'm like, I was not expecting somebody to be right there, but I figured, oh, they probably left something in their car and they're rushing out to get it real quick. The problem with that is I didn't hear any footsteps in the grass. There was no sound. As soon as I noticed the shadow outline of a person, it was gone. And that was that. There was no person. Now, I've talked about this before a couple of times with other people. I've mentioned it in my late night videos before. I don't know if it was a shadow person, a ghost, the thing of it is, because I thought it was a cat, but then when I saw the outline, it looked like the lower half, like the legs of a person, but then they made no sound, no noises at all, and then they were just gone. They were just physically not there anymore. So I don't know what it was. I kind of count it as like a creepy encounter because it was very creepy. But I don't know what it was.